All right, my free-minded friends, JR Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody showing up and come on in. We're glad to have you. We're going to start just a few minutes early because I want to make absolutely sure that we have everything working. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, I guess it's my right-hand side, your left-hand side of your screen, we have the Congress all coming together. Today is, of course, the State of the Union speech, and we're going to cover it live right here. Just a little FYI, I have at least 3 different source feeds, and I have a feed directly from the White House. So if we don't like one feed, we can simply switch over to another feed. Easy peasy, no problem at all. You may recall that the State of the Union, if you didn't know, I'm happy to tell you, why do we have the State of the Union? Well, the State of the Union is mandated by the United States Constitution. The president is required under the Constitution of the United States. He has to let the Congress know, essentially report to the American people, the state of our union. It's really just that simple. Now, in reality, he does not have to actually give a speech, but that has become our American tradition for the last 100 and some years. I know back originally, they simply would just basically fill out a piece of paper and have the piece of paper sent over to the Congress, and that was the State of the Union. Of course, nowadays it has become a very pageant type of matter, and we just watched a minute ago the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, showing up, and we are going to go ahead and join in on this feed here. I want to make sure I got everybody covered. We are streaming on Facebook, so welcome to all our Facebook friends out there. Oh, yeah. We got a bunch of people on Twitter already. 53 people on Twitter alone already. Wow, that's fantastic. I guess it's called X now, so we'll go with X. But we have a lot of resources going on right now. Good deal. And we're starting to get people to pile in on YouTube. Sounds good. Want to verify my end. Okay, it looks good. Sounds good. Anybody has any problems, please go ahead and let me know. And if you haven't done so already, please take a moment and introduce yourself. I'd like you to come on in and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and where you're from. I have already been chatting a little bit with, anyways, American Anna. Thanks for joining. She's always here. Matt, I know that it's a little bit past your bedtime, my friend, so if you don't make it, I'll catch you tomorrow. And, of course, we have Zach in the house as usual. Welcome, Zach, as always. All righty. Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how long the president is able to actually make it. Who knows? It's past his bedtime, too, I can assure you that. I saw a shirt the other day I thought was pretty cute. It said something like Joe Biden for resident versus president. So they got a bunch of cute little T-shirts going up. And, of course, on your screen now, you see Kamala Harris. Let me switch the view here just a little bit. You see Kamala Harris in the center of your screen. And then, of course, that's newly minted Speaker Mike Johnson. And I'm sure the president has already left. Actually, he's about to leave the White House. I can see it on my other monitor here. It's not a very long drive from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue over to the Capitol building. If you've never been to Washington, D.C., it is definitely a place to go visit. Very beautiful, historic, wonderful place. Definitely teach you everything about this great country of ours. No doubt about that. All right. Thanks for joining us today. As a Vin Julian, thanks for showing up. Thanks for commenting. Thank you. Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then San Diego in the house. Fantastic. Oh, so they did have protesters blocking. I'm not surprised. I got a few other monitors I got on just to kind of monitor things, and I'm not surprised by that at all. If you're on the X platform, feel free to comment. I can see all comments right here. Looks like Twitch is working good. Hello to my Facebook friends. And looks like we're off to the race here. We know how this works. The president should show up before long. And I know it's something we kind of joke a lot about. We are definitely all curious as to what is the health of our president. Is he going to be able to go the distance, or is he not going to be able to go the distance? Personally, I may not be the biggest fan of Joe Biden. However, I do want him to stay healthy because the alternative is, in my opinion, absolutely unthinkable, aka Kamala Harris. That just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, to kind of put it mildly right there. If you're listening to me on the X platform, be sure when you get the opportunity, click on one of those links over there and head over to YouTube and subscribe to it's simply at JR Dukes. At JR Dukes. If you'd like to join us live, we have that option too. If you'd like to make a comment, if there are any problems with the live stream or anything tonight, there's my direct cell number. I don't answer my cell during a live broadcast. And of course, be available for any type of comments that come in. Make sure I got everything set up, so give me just 1 second here. If you do have a comment, feel free to use the comment. Or feel free to comment, and we can talk about any questions. Questions are welcome also. As you know, there's been a lot of interest in exactly what is the health of our president. And I guess that all remains to be seen. This next week, I did want to mention that, interestingly enough, the so-called HER report, H-E-R, the gentleman's name, I think he spells it H-E-R-R, but it may be H-E-R. This is the special prosecutor that was appointed by the Biden administration to investigate Joe Biden. And let's see, give me 1 second here. Okay, we'll see exactly what it is. If we pop for 1 second or something, don't fret. It'll show, it will hop right back in there with us, so we'll all be in good shape. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, I think we're all in good shape. Looks like everything's working the way it should. I don't think the president has left the White House yet. According to my other monitors, he has not. But we do have on your screen right there, we do have more dignitaries and cabinet officials and senators that are currently entering the House chamber right now. Yeah, these are the senators that are entering right now. You could recommend Bernie Sanders, or you can recognize Bernie Sanders right there in the middle. It's kind of hard not to recognize old sweet Bernie, right? So when they have the State of the Union, of course, the Senate side, you have at the Capitol building, you have two sides. You have the House on one side, you have the Senate on the other, and they come on over and visit one another for the ceremonial speech that the president's about to give. Generally, the speech now, it's been getting longer and longer as time has been going on. And yeah, the president is now departing the White House. Looks like his motorcade is being readied. I'm sure they had to give him an extra shot of something to help him get out of the White House and show back up. So, yeah, I agree with y'all. Your comments here, Zach. Yeah, they should have Fanny there. That'd be kind of funny, wouldn't it? That's I didn't even think about that. That's kind of cute. Yeah, Fanny should be the guest of honor there. It'd be fun watching them try to keep a straight face. Absolutely. Yeah, Ashley Merchant did a great job at that hearing. We're going to be talking more about that. So if y'all haven't been tuning in for that, please take time to do so, because it is going to be, we got a lot more coverage to go over pertaining to Ashley Merchant. That was some of the best must-see TV I've seen in a while. Okay, the president is leaving right now. As you can see on the screen, he's talking, so says he's feeling good.
Jump, I need you. See y'all later. Yeah, for you.
Okay, he's laughing and talking with the crowd there, so let's listen in. In the House chamber, you see the Joint Chiefs of Staff right there. And the president's motorcade is on the right-hand side of your screen. Yeah, that's very true, Julianne. The story of Fannie Willis just keeps on getting better. Every day seems like there's something new that is dropping. So it is definitely getting better, more juicy. Yeah, that's a good point, Zach. We ought to try to have one day free of Fanny, but it's tough. It's definitely tough. She's the gift that keeps on giving. There's just absolutely no doubt about that. What I'm going to try to focus on tonight, just so you all know, as we're watching our screens here, I'm going to try to make notes on exactly what his key policy proposals are. And I want to kind of, when I see BS, I want to kind of call it out. I'm not going to interrupt him talking. At least I'm going to try not to. I'd rather for everybody to hear it. I'll make notes and we can talk about it afterwards. And then, of course, once the president has finished speaking, shortly thereafter, there's going to be a Republican response. And I believe I put it in the credits who's going to be given the response. That is going to be by, let's see, the Republican response. Make sure I say his name accurately.
And you're watching members of the House and Senate gather on the House floor live. We're about 10 minutes away from the State of the Union. And as you can see, the president just left the White House, seemingly a little late. Greta Bronner, do you have any information on that?
Yeah, the Washington Post noted about 20 minutes ago that ceasefire protesters were occupying the route the president takes, his motorcade takes, from the White House to the Capitol. Around 250 were sitting on Pennsylvania Avenue. The protesters projected Biden's legacy as genocide onto the East Building of the National Gallery of Art and are demanding that the U.S. end funding to Israel. So not sure if that is what delayed the president's departure. He is expected to speak toward the top of the hour or a little after, but that is from the Washington Post. Live coverage here of the State of the Union on C-SPAN.
All right. So, yeah, that confirms what we've been talking about. There are some protesters trying to block his route on the way over there. I did not hear any anticipation that it is supposed to result in a delay. And I would say 10 minutes away is just about perfect. It's supposed to start right about 9 o'clock. So that's about exactly where it should be. I'm sure they blame Trump for everything. There's no doubt about that, right? Absolutely. So, as I was saying, this being an election year, you just know this is going to be a little more lively speech. I've heard rumors online that, Marjorie Greene Taylor out of Georgia. Remember, she interrupted President Biden's speech. Was it last year or the year before that? But she interrupted his speech last time and called him a liar. It's going to be interesting to see if there's any disruptions like that, exactly how he's able to respond or not respond to it. All right, so you have Mike Johnson calling the House to order.
The joint session will come to order. The chair appoints as members of the committee on the part of the House to escort the President of the United States into the chamber. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Stefanik. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain. The House be in order. The House be in order.
That's Mitch McConnell, the outgoing
The gentleman from
majority
Oklahoma,
leader.
Mr. Cole. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. Gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers. Gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Del Bene. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Underwood. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Escobar. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Trahan. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Kildee.
So these are going to be the representatives.
The President of the Senate, at the direction of that body,
Bringing
appoints
the
the
president,
following
escorting the president
senators
in.
as members of the committee on the part of the Senate to escort the President of the United States into the House chamber. The Senator from New York, Mr. Schumer. The Senator from Illinois, Mr. Durbin. The Senator from Washington, Mrs. Murray. The Senator from Michigan, Ms. Stabenow. The Senator from Minnesota, Ms. Klobuchar. The Senator from Virginia, Mr. Warner. The Senator from Wisconsin, Ms. Baldwin. The Senator from Kentucky, Mr. McConnell. The Senator from South Dakota, Mr. Thune. The Senator from Wyoming, Mr. Barrasso. The Senator from West Virginia, Mrs. Capito. And the Senator from Iowa, Ms. Ernst.
The members of the escort committee will exit the chamber through the lobby doors.
I hope y'all brought some tea or some popcorn or something. There's going to be a few parts here that's going to be a little bit boring. I'm going to try to fill them in with discussion as I have a whole list of stuff that we can talk about. You can see Matt Gaetz right there in the middle of your screen. Out of basically, he's a representative somewhere out of Orlando here in Florida. And remember, he was the one responsible for the ouster of the former Speaker of the House out of California. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I know his name. I've been talking about it for the last week. Someone put in the comments if you can. Who's the outgoing speaker before Mike Johnson, the one that got booted by Gaetz? He's actually on Fox News a lot now. I believe, like everybody else, he's going to end up being a Fox News contributor. No, not Pelosi, sweetheart. It's the outgoing speaker after Pelosi. He served only like 6, 7, 8 months, something like that. Yeah, McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy. Thank you, sweetheart. Appreciate that. That's exactly right. Thank you. I want to welcome all the 72 individuals on the X platform. Got about 26 on YouTube. And got a couple friends on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. J.R. Dukes at your service. We are watching live. This is the President of the United States about to give the State of the Union address. All right, as I was saying a minute ago, I'm going to take notes as we go through this. I'll try to put highlights on the screen right here. They are showing some of the protesters out on the streets around the Capitol building, but obviously they're not successful, which they should not be. Here it goes, folks.
The Chief Justice and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
All right, this is the Supreme Court. We've been hearing a lot about them recently in the news, especially with the fantastic 9-0 decision handed down. They were all unanimous in their decision, which is rare in itself. So good for them. Especially considering the 3 liberal members that they have on the court. I was a little bit surprised. I was hoping for a 9-0 verdict, but I was thinking it might be 8-1, but good for them. I'm glad they were able to find some common ground there. Discernment, glad to have you, my friend. Welcome back. Yeah, it looks like a geriatric ward. I'm sure Biden took a nap this afternoon, so he's well rested. At least I hope he did. It's going to be a rough 2 hours for him. I had some of our regulars earlier tell me it's past their bedtime, and I'm like, hell, it's past my bedtime. I'm joking just a little bit. Depends on the day. Depends how early I get up the next morning. All right, as we were talking about a little while ago, a lot of controversy, a lot of subjects going on right now. This being an election year, obviously has put even more of a finer point on exactly what's going on right now. The lady on your screen right there is the newest justice. That's that Keisha Brown Jackson. Hope I didn't butcher her name too bad. And sitting beside her was Chief Justice John Roberts, who, of course, was there they are again right there. Of course, he was appointed by former President George W. Bush. Sometimes his voting is not always conservative. Sometimes the Republicans will put up a conservative on the court. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to vote conservative. And John Roberts is one of those such individuals. He's not a firm, continuous, reliable conservative vote is probably the best way to say it. He does flip-flop from time to time. However, the court currently enjoys a supermajority of conservatives, and that's the reason why most of the decisions have pretty well went down at least a 5-4 decision, because there are 6 members that are considered conservative. And even if you take John Roberts out of the equation, that's still a 5-4 split. So in case you're wondering how that works, that's how that works. John Roberts, by far, is not the first person to ever be on the court and basically be a surprise to the court. Happens all the time. I remember Justice Kennedy a long time ago when he was on the court. I believe he was supposed to be a conservative, and he turned out to be one of the most liberal individuals of the court. You just never know who you're going to put up there and exactly how they're going to vote. Yeah, that's about right, Zach. I agree with you. There's the president. So he's in the hallway right there. That's the hall right before you walk into the actual chamber. In a moment, they're going to announce the president, and they will start forward with it. I'm anticipating a little bit of fireworks tonight. I don't know about y'all, but I think there's going to be a little bit of juicy squeeze stuff going on. We'll see how it goes. Oh, that'd be terrible. Hope he doesn't. Yeah, it's going to be interesting what he rules on. He may open it back up for additional testimony. Remember, they have the 2 additional witnesses have now come forward, so we'll see how that all goes out. One of the witnesses was that Manny Aurora, who actually was representing one of the defendants. And then the other witness is a current solicitor at the Cobb County Court. That's 2 solid, reliable, credible witnesses. There's so much evidence. It's just it's almost insurmountable. I will tell you this, I'm a firm believer that, unfortunately, all these cases against former President Donald Trump have clearly been orchestrated at the behest of the Biden administration. There's no 2 ways to say it. I don't know necessarily that President Joe Biden himself has been orchestrating or monitoring this, because obviously he doesn't have the capacity to do this, in my opinion. However, I'm sure the individuals actually running the government, his surrogates, are definitely doing that. On your screen now is that senator from Maine in the middle, and on her left is Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, and to her right is the very angry, sometimes erratic senator out of Alaska. I forgot her name off the top of my head. I think it starts with an M. Murkowski or something, but she's out of Alaska. Out of the great big state of Alaska. So as I was saying, this being an election year, a lot of important stuff is really going to start from this day forward. This is pretty well the beginning since Nikki Haley has dropped out. This is kind of like the unofficial start of the general election race. At least that's what most talking heads say, and I would have to pretty well agree with that myself. And then right on your screen, right in the middle, that's Marco Rubio from Florida. So right now is just social hour with all the senators and representatives. I believe in the House, there's like 435 representatives, in case you want to know. And on the senator side, there are exactly 100 senators. Obviously, each state gets 2 senators. And then as far as the House of Representatives is concerned, you have a distribution based on the population, and that's how they divvy it up. This last year, California lost 1 representative because a lot of people leaving California, moving to Texas, or where I live, right here in the great state of Florida. So you got a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I think there's going to be a lot more of changes coming. Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not. It's not even going to be just a matter of pinning it on Joe. The report, according to Breitbart, and they've been doing some excellent reporting on all this. I've been covering it on my channel also, and that is that there's an actual plant that has been pointed out, unveiled, inside the Fannie Willis administration and allegedly put there by the Biden administration. His name is Jeff DeSantis, not to be confused with Governor DeSantis here in the state of Florida. This is another individual, used to be he's always been what you would call a deep member of the Democratic Party. This guy was like the head chair. He's worked on Senate campaigns, representative campaigns. He's done a lot in the Democratic Party, and for whatever reason, he is now working in the DA Fannie Willis administration, which is odd. And the speculation is that he is a plant via the Biden administration. So we'll see how that all turns out. I have not heard many people in the mainstream press pick that story up. If you're interested, it's on Breitbart. And you're right, it is Jeff DeSantis. That's exactly right. I know that Lou Dobbs has talked about this. I love Megyn Kelly on her channel on YouTube. If y'all haven't checked her out, you need to go over there and check her out. Not right now, of course, but just joking there. She's been doing some good reporting, some in-depth reporting on this whole subject too. If that turns out to be the case, that the Biden administration actually has planted him in there, when you talk about election interference, I don't know how it gets any more clear than election interference. And you talk about a RICO case, folks, that is a de facto RICO case. What else would it not be? I mean, that is racketeering, internally corrupt organizations. That's exactly what that is. A federal agency, the federal government, working to take out the leading candidate for president. That's the kind of stuff you see in Ecuador or you see today in Russia. If it pans out to be true, it's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out. Personally, I think that story would be a bigger story than any of the Trump stories, because this would be proof of what you would call election interference. I don't know how else you get around it. The White House logs, are you talking about their fireplace in there? I think they have a real fireplace, if that's what you're meaning. Yeah, I haven't seen much about Fannie. Yeah, the Fannie Willis has been in D.C. according to documents released. I was trying to think what the document was we looked at. I think Ashley Merchant in her testimony to the Georgia State Senate yesterday. Well, I'm going to tell you what, we're going to have to talk about that one again, because you talk about an interesting testimony given by Attorney Ashley Merchant in front of the senators in the state of Georgia. Wow, did she do a great job in filling out? She filled out all kinds of blank spaces, as Taylor Swift would say, to figure, to fill in the gaps of what we were missing as far as the story. All right, I think they're getting ready here. We'll see. Yep, here's the announcement. Actually, I think that is I changed that. That is the husband of the vice president, if y'all don't recognize him. I think he's referred to as the second gentleman. And I definitely don't know his name off the top of my head. And I did see Nancy Pelosi over there. I definitely seen her. Yeah, if you haven't seen my series on the incompetence of Nathan Wade, it is something definitely to check out. I went back to the first and second time he was actually in court, and it's all recorded. At the time, we did not realize how incompetent he was, but when you go back and you dissect that video, it is so clear that this guy is a novice, has never prosecuted one felony case in his entire life. And when you look at it with that understanding, it's so obvious what's going on. Even the judge was just kind of flabbergasted, taken back. He really didn't know what to do. The judge did everything he could not to embarrass him. I mean, that's exactly what happened. The judge was taking pains just to be polite and not embarrass him. And then, of course, you got First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. That doctor stuff cracks me up. If you haven't delivered a baby, you probably shouldn't be called doctor, but that's just my humble opinion. I guess you can be a doctor if you're a psychiatrist or something along them lines, but the thing that is odd, in my opinion, about her doctor is honorary. Do you guys know anybody that is an honorary doctor that goes around calling themselves doctor? I don't know. Just doesn't sound right to me. Just my opinion.
Mr. Speaker, the president's cabinet.
I saw that video too. Yeah, I saw that video too, the sermon on, here's the cabinet of the president coming in now. So you're going to have like the Secretary of State. There he is. And of course, behind him, that's the guy that just had prostate surgery. The Joint Chief Liaison, Lloyd Austin's his name. That is the guy the president turns to when he wants to communicate with the military. So it's rather interesting that they can go 3 days without 3 days, and nobody knew he was in the hospital, essentially in critical care, fighting for his life. Kind of makes you wonder who's running the military, right? Or who's running the country for that matter. But that is exactly what transpired. Back on that video pertaining to Nathan Wade, or rather, Nathan Wade, I got a lot more coming out on that. That's not, this situation with Trump is not their first scrape with the law by any stretch, or scrape of alleged wrongdoing or some kind of malfeasance. This has been going on for some time. I'm sure she is keeping him alive. I don't have any doubt about that. I'm not surprised that he is hanging in there, though. It is very difficult to walk away from power. You're president of the United States. You're in power. You got all these prestige, and power is very, very alluring, and it's very difficult to walk away from. What do you think when these people drop out of the race, like Nikki Haley, Governor DeSantis, and these other individuals? When they leave, they're so mad and they're so angry because power, fame, it's intoxicating. I talk about that book all the time about how to win friends and influence people. He kind of makes the same point in that book. Everybody wants to feel special. Everybody wants to be known for something. Everybody wants to be important. It's a universal human need. And when these individuals run for president, they wake up, look at themselves in the mirror, and they're thinking, hey, I'm the next president of the United States. And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't pan out for them, it's tough to call it quits. You walk into a room, everybody stands up and claps. It's addicting. Not that I would know, but I'm just telling you, I can just imagine. I think it was the late Secretary of State, this guy, Henry, it's coming to me, Henry Kissinger. he was never what I would call a good-looking man. Not that I can necessarily tell, but by his own words, he would tell you he was not blessed with the best looks in the world. Yet, especially back in the 70s, he dated and was with some of the most beautiful women in the world at that time. The list of his loves, I guess you could call it, is amazing. And he gave an interview not long before he died, and that was one of the things he said. He said something to the effect of, power is the best aphrodisiac. And I could imagine it is. You never know what I'm going to talk about on this show, do you? Yeah, circus is coming. They do have AIDS, but remember the aide that was helping him was out of the country. She didn't even know that he was in the hospital. I read an article or an interview that she gave, or something she gave to the president that I found online. She didn't even know the extent of his condition. She didn't even know he was in the hospital, talking about Lloyd Austin. She just knew she was given some extra work. So no, there was not any type of clear path. There's that representative out of Colorado, Britt. How do you say her name? I butcher it every time. On a side note, she is one good-looking woman, too. Her son just made a bunch of news stories because, unfortunately for him, I think he got caught with drugs or something. I'll have to Google it real quick and find out, but he got himself in trouble over something. And to her credit, she quickly responded that he's a grown man. He's going to have to deal with his consequence. But FKF, I'll check further into that, and we'll talk about that at a later time. They actually did not know the extent of Lloyd Austin's serious situation. Thanks for your comment, by the way. I don't think I've seen you before in the chat. Welcome. Yeah. I thought it was too early for Ron DeSantis, too, to be honest with you. He's just before his time. He's got a beautiful family. There's a lot of things I like about him, but let's be honest about it, folks. He does not have the charisma that Donald Trump has. I mean, I just don't see it. He was smart. I agree. That's exactly right. He's been in charge the last 7 days. Yeah, that's right. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Bobart, or I think she's 34 last time I looked.
Joe! Mr. Speaker.
Here we go.
President of the United States.
Yeah, the president's looking good, I think. Looks like he just got a fresh rub down of Ben Gay, and he's ready to take the stage here. So, actually, I hope he is able to do well, believe it or not. It's not healthy for the United States to look weak at any given time. Okay, he overdosed. I think he's okay, though. I hope he's okay. That would have to be very problematic for any parent to experience something like that. Yeah, I'm sure he has been rubbed down, wiped, ready to go. Oh, you're terrible at discernment. He has to be guided. I can't argue with that, Zach. He's got to be guided around. Like, where am I going? Where's my X to stand on? Fox News did a great job about that. Oh, that is that Marjorie Taylor Greene with the Trump hat on? There she is, right there. See her? I'm trying to listen to what they're saying. I'll let you know if I hear it. See Trump 2020. Oh, that's brutal. Oh, that's cold, but funny. Well, we got a quick second. Looks like we got 72 folks on X. Welcome. 41 on YouTube. A couple friends on Facebook, and we have a friend on Twitch. So welcome to everybody. You are watching live, in case you're wondering. I hope that was not her son. I thought he was just in trouble with the law. That is terrible if that's the case. Appreciate the information. Just the same, I'll look it up. Oh, it was a theft thing? Okay. Did the theft. All right. Thanks for the information. Of course, he's going to stop and take a photo with everybody. It would have been hilarious if he had a photo with Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, with she's all decked out in her Trump hat and everything. That is just terribly funny. He probably does think he's a star. Yeah, the way he's going, he might have to have a nap way up there. I don't know. By the time he finishes. You know, there's a lot of controversy right now about whether or not he's even going to debate. I think he believes it's still 2020. He can hide in the basement all the time and still win the election. We'll have to see if he gets away with it this time. They've already pretty well have said that they're not going to debate. And what they're going to use, I believe, is two things. Number one, they're going to talk about already how Trump would not debate Birdbrain, Nikki Haley, and say that Donald Trump wouldn't debate. Why should he? Of course, that's apple and oranges. It's not the same thing. And then I think the other thing that they're going to put their hat on, so to speak, is going to be they're going to say Trump is an insurrectionist, and they're not going to dignify him with a debate, just a cop out. But we'll see how it works out. If there is a debate, I'm sure there'll be one and done, one debate, and that's it. Yeah, Joe Biden appointed her to the Supreme Court, the lady he was just talking with, the Jackson justice. I think he's getting closer to the stage. I tell you something, I hope he stays in good health, at least through his term. But I pray so hard that people are not duped into voting for this guy again. Say her name, yeah. That's cute. I like that. Just to say her name. Oh, okay. I love it. Yeah, that's right. He won't even mention her name. As a side note, the House passed a bill today in her honor pertaining to the illegal immigration crisis. Okay, you are watching live, just so everybody knows. And as usual, he's given a copy of the speech to each person behind him, which of course is Vice President Kamala Harris and the newer Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And he'll introduce the president here in just 1 second.
Tony. Thank you.
Very true.
Jill. Good evening. Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now.
If we were smart, we'd go home now.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. In January,
He did not wait to get introduced. Did y'all
1941,
notice that? He
Franklin
did not
Roosevelt
wait.
came to this chamber to speak to the
He already
nation.
messed up.
And he said, I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers in war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, Assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. Wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now, my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
Oh, he's mixing it up already. Looking for a fight.
America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. I'm going to stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you are here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win. As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you, without regard to party, to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office of defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. are watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child. The Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind? A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot. We leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, I inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment
was because of COVID.
at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernize our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable, affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in a family farm, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same. The folks of Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs in the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America. Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sim, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is bright. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger. Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. With the law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin, with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make. They only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market that treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year, even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get in Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, it's still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor and many in this chamber want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. They enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent. To state the obvious, women are more than half our population. But research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. To pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world. And I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year, that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten, or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I said, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to good paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure that college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. When I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans, I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise. And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and the very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make a million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes.
Except if your name is Biden, then you don't pay your taxes.
It's how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million that could be deducted. They can pay them $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse. I propose a minimum tax for billionaires of 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine a future with affordable child care. Millions of families can get they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine the future of home care and elder care, and people living with disabilities, so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion to the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Look, too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it. You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees, those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's a hell of a lot, like $8 and 30 some dollars. They don't like it. Credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh?
Liar, liar.
That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands.
He's outright lying at this point.
This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now. And if my predecessor is watching, instead of paying politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together. But that's what here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border, provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere, but we're all Americans. Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him. But joining us tonight are other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma, the daughter of gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But 59 years later, there are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering. John Lewis was a great friend to many of us here. But if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Right Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs, like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice, fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. And pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence. I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. the constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing this.
And she's doing a great job taking care of things.
Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oof. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There's his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America. This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also we will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has an added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. For the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America's falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills. There's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why the song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers. Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H, and remind us that we can do big things like end cancer as we know it, and we will. Let me close with this. Yay. I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor. Now, other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president of our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president. In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they're going to let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. And I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all. And may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Right. Obviously, that was President Joe Biden giving a speech for the State of the Union. I'm going to go through the comments here in just a second. Let me see if I can just turn this down a little bit. Okay, we'll just let this kind of roll in the background now. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. I got a few comments to make, and we had to bear, that was so painful to our ears. We had to listen to that. However, the Republicans get to go next. So hopefully there's going to be a little bit of a leveling of the playing field. I believe it's somebody new that's actually going to give the response for the Republicans. It's I mentioned it earlier who it was, but let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I think it's someone out of Alabama. I don't really recognize the name, to be honest with you. Oh, it's Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. So hopefully they'll get a little more balance. Folks, I got a few things I want to point out. First of all, I don't know if you agree or not, but the Democrats have went full Fruit Loop, complete and utter Fruit Loop on this. They are definitely the party of socialism. I don't know how else you say this. Their ideas, the way they look at things, it is way, way out there. This was extremely painful to my ears, as I'm sure it was yours. Let me go ahead and mute this just for a second till the other party starts up. Hang on one second. It's difficult to make comments when I have to listen to that nonsense in my ear. Obviously, as soon as the Republicans respond, which should be momentarily, I will cut right over and we will turn that feed right back on. So, okay, let's go to a split screen. Folks, this was painful, but at least I think the good news here is we know where the Democrats stand. We know what the Democrats are all about, and we know they actually believe this nonsense that they spew. My grandfather would be rolling in his grave right now if he could. The Democratic Party today is definitely not the Democratic Party of Bill Clinton, not the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy. Absolutely no way. When they are talking about a 25% tax on billionaires, what is that about? So, first of all, who's a billionaire? How do they determine that? Does that mean assets? Does that mean your income that you make every year? Does that mean, what are they going to do? Hire more IRS agents to determine who's a billionaire and who's not? And then they're going to what? Take 25% of what you have or 25% of what you made? I don't know if these people really believe that that's possible or if they are just saying that to win votes. That is just absolutely lunacy. New York State did the same thing. They started imposing a surtax on multimillionaires up to a certain threshold. We had Governor Cuomo. He was real happy about passing that. Well, guess what? It backfired. They had a ton of people that were very wealthy start leaving the city. And I'm talking people in the very top income earning brackets, and they started moving to Florida. They started moving to Texas, and they decided they better relook at that law and repeal it, among other things, because they know that law is just a complete and utter joke. Nobody's going to stick around where they're not wanted. If you pass a tax like that against wealthy people in the United States, you think they're going to live here, or you think they're going to go over to Britain, or they're going to go over somewhere in Europe or some other country? I know what I would be doing. I know the guy that runs the company called Paychecks. Y'all may or may not have heard of him. It's similar to ADP. They do payroll servicing. He simply moved from New York State some time ago. They got a huge office right here in Tampa, huge, beautiful headquarters. My understanding is the first year he moved here, he saved $30 million in taxes. $30 million in his personal income tax. So you can do the math to figure out what he has to be making per year. When you hear these Democrats talk about these companies need to pay their fair share, again, I don't know if they really believe this or if they just don't understand how the laws work. We are not taxed. The businesses are not taxed, or what I should say is the fact that they don't pay their fair share is nonsense. It doesn't work like that. Any business person understands this. The way we do it in our country is you're taxed on what you earn. If you're a worker and you work for a wage, you know, those deductions in your check, you see the deductions for Social Security, federal, FICA, whatever the deductions are, whatever you actually pull on you, whatever you actually earn, that's what you pay money on. A lot of these companies, not paying their fair share. Well, that's just a complete joke. What company is he talking about not paying their fair share? Companies that I've ran, you purposely run the company in such a manner to where the company has no money in it at the end of the year, or at least it's right at a loss, or it's really close, or it may be an S corporation or an S corporation type LLC. There's a 8832 election you can take on an LLC, and you can simply choose as the owner of the company to have all the income flow through to you to your personal tax return. There is no company tax, and the majority of companies in the United States is what I just described. They're small individuals. They're mom and pops. What the hell is he talking about? I don't get that at all. Pay your fair share. Whenever you hear people talk like that, you need to really find out, what are you talking about, sir? That's not the way the economy works. We are taxed on our income. We're not taxed. The companies, there's technically a tax that companies pay, but not really. It depends on the company and how they're set up. And as I just said, most companies are not set up that way. And if they are, and they change the tax rate, well, then they're just going to shift the money to another type entity. They're going to shift it overseas. There's a million plays that they can make. It's really just that simple. Additionally, what if the company is like a real estate type company where they invest in real estate, or they buy homes and they rent the homes out? The government purposely incentivizes that type of behavior because they want the population in general to have affordable, nice places to live. And that's a whole other dynamic. That's how Donald Trump is so wealthy, is real estate speculation. There's three ways in our society that you become wealthy. One of them is the old-fashioned way. You inherit money from family members, from, I don't know, the rich uncle type thing. The second way that you become wealthy is the self-made man. You start your own business. As a woman, you start your own business and you become wealthy. And then the third way is real estate and stock speculation. Exactly what I'm just talking about. So all I'm saying is this: when you hear someone like Joe Biden talk about that these companies are not paying their fair share, that's just a complete lie, an absolute lie. And when they do cut the taxes on corporations, the certain corporations, they actually may surplus money in some of their bank accounts. And I'm not an accountant, so I don't want to get off on the weeds on this. All I can tell you is it benefits all of us when they're able to take money, hold it, and then invest it, because it just stimulates the economy. It stimulates everything. So it's just really unbelievable how they try to sell us this bill of goods. And when they talk about the minimum wage, did y'all see that one cuckoo that's talking about a $50 minimum wage in California? That's not a joke. There is a assemblywoman there that's trying to push through a $50 minimum wage. I mean, what is that all about? A $50 minimum wage? These people do not live in the real world. They obviously have never had a business of their own. They have obviously never ran anything except their mouth. They just don't know what they are talking about. Generally, whenever you hear someone say, "Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," you need to run. You need to run very quickly, because this is not going to be a good thing. I want to tell you about another lie. Another lie that you're hearing all the time is this lie about our immigration system. Joe Biden's like, "Hey, listen, I need more money to do my job of protecting the border, and I need a new law. I need a new law so that I can protect the border." It's a complete another lie. Why is it a lie? Well, number one, what are we going to do? Pass another law so he can just ignore the law? He will not enforce the laws that we have on the books now. We have laws on the books now that can secure the border. He has all the authority he needs. If you don't believe me, just go back to the Donald Trump administration. He had the border secured. The border was completely taken care of. There was no issue with the border. Remember the Remain in Mexico policy? He negotiated with Mexico. He pretty well told Mexico, "You're going to keep these people on your side of the border until we adjudicate their claims." It's really just that simple. And for the most part, the problem was solved. Let me tell you how bad this problem is. I don't really think any of us really grasp how bad this immigration problem is. All of people that look like me, we're basically from Europe, right? Well, between 1860, 1870 through the beginning of World War I, there was approximately 10 million of us that come to this country from Europe. Remember that number, 10 million. Well, when it comes to immigration now, they're having 12 million people in just Joe Biden's first term coming across the border. That's almost unbelievable, those type of numbers. And thank God for the governor of Texas out there. What is his name? Is it? It's not Rick Perry. The whatever his name is governor. I know his name. I just can't think of the guy. He's in a wheelchair. He's a great governor. He was smart enough to simply start spreading the pain around, and that is one reason this conversation has completely changed. He started shipping, busing, flying these illegals coming across the border to places that were sanctuary cities. They were all over TV saying, "Oh, we have a heart, we have compassion, we love everybody. Send us those people, and we'll show you how to take care of people and how it's done." Well, that's what he did. And now New York City is crying, Chicago's crying. You got cities all over the place that are not too happy about the situation that's going on. So I just want you to know, when you hear this immigration thing and Donald Trump made a phone call and killed it, it's a big lie. If that law would have passed, it would not have changed nothing. Changed absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, it was a worse law than what we have now, because it allowed the president at his sole discretion to essentially cancel the law. He could declare an emergency and make exceptions. Something about it would take 3 months for it to actually go into effect, and then they had to study it for a year. I'm not kidding you. Open up the text of the law. It was absolutely insane what the law was calling for. And then it allowed, what was it, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people a day, or so many thousand a day before they could declare an emergency. And that was if it was an average. I'm not making this up. This is exactly what the law was talking about, the so-called law. Raising income taxes on companies, how do you think that's going to affect the economy that they have here? I will tell you this, both parties need to review and talk about the federal debt. There's just absolutely no other way to put that. That federal debt is a problem. It's getting worse, and that needs to be solved one way or the other. The only thing I am concerned with, and I'm going to turn to some of the comments here in just a second so we can get some of these comments answered. The one thing that I am concerned about as far as this next election is, I don't want to say the word out too many times because of YouTube's monetization policies, but essentially the abortion issue. We have to be careful with that. Obviously, this is a very sensitive subject for obvious reasons. However, I like the way Donald Trump has been handling it this time around. I call it Donald Trump 2.0. And what he has been doing is he has been saying, hey, listen, we have to win elections. 85% of the people want some kind of abortion access. That's just the statistics in America. 85%. I want you to remember that statistic. Now, that ranges from people that want abortion up to the moment of birth, and that ranges all the way back to people that want access maybe a week or 2 weeks or whatever. You know, it just runs that entire range of options right there. Well, if 85% of Americans want that some type of access, some type of reasonable access, and you have someone like Nikki Haley saying that I'm a right to life person, period, and I make no apologies about, well, that's a person not going to win elections. And if you don't believe me, look back at 2000 and definitely look back at 2022. It's a major problem. And I'm hoping Donald Trump is on the right path with this, and I think he is, because the way he's talking now is not necessarily I'm going to outlaw abortion. What he is saying now is, I want to be a mediator. I want to work with all parties involved on the state and or federal level and come up with a solution that works for everyone. He's open to solutions that work in one area, but not another area. I think that's the way he has to go, because here's the deal. You can be all you want to be as far as right to life. If you don't win elections, you're not going to be able to help the unborn. You're not going to be able to help mothers in crisis. You're not going to be able to help the children that are frankly born. It's just that simple. So we have to use common sense on this issue, and we have to be open to other ideas and find some way to thread this very complicated and sensitive needle. And if we don't, I believe that could cause Donald Trump to lose the next election. And the Democrats know that. If you notice, Joe Biden was hitting that drum with everything he got. Right? Am I wrong about that? Did you guys see that? So it's something that's going to have to be monitored and it's going to have to be handled. And if we don't face it and we don't acknowledge it for what it is, don't blame me if Donald Trump loses this next election, because folks, the election, whether you can believe this or not, is going to be close. I know it's kind of hard to believe this. It is going to be close. It just is. It's going to come down to roughly 6 states and 100,000 voters. That's what it's going to come down to. You're going to have states like Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, and probably Pennsylvania. They're going to be the states that decide this next election. So we have to be mindful of all this. It's just really that simple. So them were the main notes. I will tell you this on climate change. I have to be careful what I say on this subject here. But nowadays, you can't even say that you have questions or that you differ or that you disagree, because then you're a denier. You're a climate change denier. I think it was Vin Julian, made the comment that a long time ago it was something and now it's something else. That's the way it was. When I was a kid, I clearly remember in the 70s in elementary school, they told us that today we were going to be under ice. And they knew this because they did core sampling, and the difference in the temperatures only took 30 years and blah, blah, blah. And then in the 80s, they started changing it. And then if you remember, it wasn't called climate change. Then they changed it to global warming. So we went from a freeze to global warming. Well, that didn't work out on the global warming because you had people giving speeches in pouring snow, and they just looked like idiots, talking about global warming, and there's snow everywhere. So they went ahead and they decided to change it to climate change. And the funny thing is, if you look up the word climate in the dictionary, climate is weather as measured over a period of a time. By definition, it changes. I mean, you almost can't even make this up. It's you're right. You're right, Julian, on this here. Global warming, they realize we are cooling. Now, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's a channel called The News with Roman or Roman something. It's a pretty big company, and he does a great job on a lot of this. He has a video on this exact subject that is just fantastic. I'm not sure how suppressed it is in the algorithm. It was hard for me to find when I went back to look it up. But if you take time to find the video, it's worth listening to it, because he takes what I just talked about and he dissects it even more over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And it is really compelling, the story behind this. But that's the way it is. Do you know the people that give us our weather, these meteorologists that's got these, like a shield or their credentials? They can't have their job without those credentials saying they're a meteorologist, right? Well, if they talk like I'm talking, and they say they have doubts about climate change, or they're concerned about this or that, guess what? They can no longer work because they will lose their credentials. So we don't even have the freedom of thought anymore. That's just the way it is in our society right now, folks. And if you don't believe the way the so-called mainstream press believes, then you're in trouble. You're in dire straits. It's really unfortunate that we now essentially regulate thought. You cannot think a certain way. If you don't think the way the masses think, you have a problem. Remember George W. Bush in office? He was talking about the fact he's a creationist and he believes that God created everything in our life. They literally laughed at him. They laughed at him to his face. There was an audible laugh. And that is so unfortunate. I, for one, believe in creation. I don't believe all this happened by some explosion or something just mysteriously bumped into something else. And the answer is, well, we can't reproduce it today, so just give it time. As a matter of fact, just give it millions and millions and billions of years, and it'll all come together just perfectly. That just sounds stupid to me, but that's just my opinion. You don't have to have that opinion, but that's just my opinion. I don't believe that things just happen. I've never seen it just happen. Have you seen it just happen? And if you think things get better by themselves, just walk out of your house, shut the door behind you, and just leave. And come back in 10 years and see how that house looks. it's not going to look real pretty. As a matter of fact, the fact that oh, hang on a second. We're about to go straight over. So let me click on this here. They're getting ready, right?
Thank you, sir.
They're about to give the response.
Keep telling these guys they're working fast. Slow. You okay? You need it.
Up in
Okay,
about
give me 1 second here. We're going to bounce right over. I'm going to switch over to our other tab and join it live. It just started up. Here we go. And we are going to it right now. Hang on, I'm working on that sound. Hang on, I'm working on that sound. Okay. Okay. And folks, I apologize. I can't get that thing to work tonight. Must have computer problems on my end. So I'm going to cut it here, let y'all bounce over and watch the response on there. So at any rate, I appreciate everybody joining me today. Y'all catch me next time. And thanks for all the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time,